Oh yeah, I should probably turn on my background.
Yeah. What are you, green at this?
Hey! There we go.
There we go. Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Yep, up to the lab.
See what's on the slab.
I see you shiver with Antissa. Patience.
God, you held it. You held it. Whew.
Oh, my tiny tiger heart can't take such exhilaration.
Ooh.
Such exhilaration.
It's giving me the vapors.
Unless you're talking about the Wheel of Time, then it's exhilaration.
Well.
Got him.
Welcome to the next installment of your weekly dose of taint.
Did you guys know that for $1 a month, for 25 cents a week, you could get 4 episodes of the Black Tower podcast as they happen and try to make us laugh and get yourself the Broken Crown role in our Discord?
Might be like the best effort for a Patreon.
Fucking
right?
back.
Oh, we should actually do that. We should definitely do a Sarah McLachlan-esque ad for our Patreon.
We shall sing this the voice of the angels.
Do the edit. What would you do if you saw an asha'man right in front of you? And there's just that clip. Fuck off, you spooky bitch.
Fuck off, Spice
Back
Guys.
up, you spooky bitch. I love it.
All right, but we're not here to
Oh,
on our Patreon. We are here to do an actual episode that hopefully will convince you that being a Patreon is worth it. But, hi, we're the Black Tower Podcast. We're a fun group of gentlemen who get together on Tuesdays to make an episode that is a talkie and also sometimes a watchy, depending on what you're looking at. Or where you're getting your podcasts, all about the Wheel of Time. And then we put them out on Fridays for everybody who's not a Patreon or who can't listen to it on Tuesdays. We have fun names. That's a cool thing that we do. Mine's
call me Taserface.
Taserface.
Mine's Daniel Ammon Khan Mahale.
I am Josh, the Soravan Mahale, okay?
And I am Andrew, the Bijan Mahale.
I think we need to do the whole episode in these now, Josh. I think we've backed ourselves into a corner.
Did we back ourselves into a corner?
Oh, I'm sorry, but we
Oh,
might
you
have backed
betcha.
ourselves into our corner.
You betcha. Gonna get some maple syrup and root beers.
Oh, that sounds like a fun night to have right there.
Maybe some of that cheddar that they've been brewing.
Mm. And if we're gonna go crazy, we're gonna go to Tim Hortons and get ourselves some coffee and a donut.
This has been the Black Tower Podcast offensive accent segment.
This is actually our rendition of Fires of Heaven, chapter 52, 53, Fire Snows.
Yeah, there we go. What happens if the Seanchan show up and instead of having Texas accents, they have Canadian?
Just sitting there staring at the igloo like, we should probably go in there and say something to them. They're trespassing. It's like, oh, That'd be rude
That's
though. wouldn't it?
Irish. That's absolutely Irish, and it's
Oh,
way
no.
more fun. I love that shit.
We'll find they're both. It's an Irishman in Canada.
There we go. It's the Irish Canadian, not the French Canadian.
I don't know. My own personal like monitor for accents is like so far off. Apparently,
No, it's all good.
I also can't really hear myself that well because over the ear
Yeah.
earbuds.
That's fair.
So because I have yet
But-
to get another pair of earbuds.
You
Anyway.
guys didn't come here to have us talk. Well, you actually probably did come here to hear us talk in offensive accents. But you came here to hear us talk in offensive accents about a particular subject, and we haven't really mentioned it that much yet. So, hi guys. This is a Wheel of Time podcast, which is why we're called the Black Tower podcast. And if you
Not to
didn't
be
know
confused
why-
with the Dark Tower book.
yes,
That
It's
is
a different
true.
thing.
That is true.
Correct.
Completely, wholly different.
wholly different. Though I will say that one person on the podcast may actually be a bit of a gunslinger. Got him.
Only one of us has wielded finger guns on national television.
Correct. A single finger gun. Let's be fair.
That's true.
Single finger gun.
There was no dual wielding.
Mm-hmm.
It did not happen. So let's see. Hold on. Let me check where we are in the schedule. We did introductions. We did our intro. Hold on. First off, drink your Dubby. Okay. It's good for you. Right? Go to dubby.gg and get your own Dubby. Sugar-free, zero crash, all the energy, no filler, all killer, and put in the BTP coupon code and get 10% off and support the Black Tower podcast. Because you
Also, when were y'all going to tell me about this?
what?
They apparently have a new flavor.
They do.
Oh,
They do
dude,
have a new
that's-
flavor.
This my flavor.
I have yet to try it.
It's the
Oh.
Cali O cream. It's mango orange cream.
Oh,
It sounds
this is
amazing.
what you called like the opposite of the pull-out method in California.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, it's just a good old Kaleo cream.
Andrew's channeling that Irish tonight.
Oh,
He's got it in him. He's got it in him.
Yeah, no, it's
Get it in your
sure.
boys.
Get it in your boys.
Yeah. So for a while there, it seemed like every 2 or 3 weeks. So like every time I would turn around, because I only turn around once every 2 to 3 weeks. I'd get a text from W being like, new flavor.
Or waifu cups are back. Or like, yeah, it
It
was
was normally the
so
waifu
often.
cups. Like they knew I was here for the anime double D's, not really for the new flavors. So
Oh
it's
snap.
fair, which is a fair assumption of my weebness.
They're actually up to 7 flavors now.
Yes.
What is this one? Big energy tears.
Yes.
What?
Oh, it's a
Get it?
blue
'Cause it's
raspberry
big
flavor.
energy.
Yeah, because I know
They're
fighting
little
big
energy. They're indie energy.
I love it.
It's
Anyway,
cool.
go to W.
fun.
Seriously, W.gg. It's super good. I've been drinking the peach and the dub sludge for months now. I actually just ran out of peach and I'm running low on dub sludge. So it's about time for me to make another order. I've had a couple friends who have ordered and have also said that they're super good. But get your Dubby. Get your Dubby.
Use the
And
link
once you're
below
done-
in the podcast description or write up, or the video description if you're on YouTube, or if you don't want to do any of those things and you just go like, hey, I'm just going to go straight to w.gg. When you get to the checkout and it's that little box that says enter your discount code or coupon, if you type in BTP as in Black Tower Podcast, you'll get
Bravo,
10%
Tango,
off your order.
Papa.
If whatever you're ordering is not already discounted. So
Yeah. I was gonna
Where is
say,
that?
if you want to go insane and get the like 5 flavor bundle,
Do it.
go for it.
And
We
if
are
you do
here
that,
to bring information to the masses, not necessarily to just make money. It would be nice if
information
you
to the
used
masses
our,
and jitters energy to those asses.
we are here to go ahead and give you info, not to tell you how to live your life. So if you are like, hey, I really want to start a war on big energy, buy a bundle. Check it out. But if you're looking for a little bit of a discount and also to help support the show and also want to dip your feet into the skeleton war, I mean, the big energy war, then go ahead and get yourself a tub and get yourself 10% off.
See, if only Europe would go to w.gg, they wouldn't be in such dire straits.
Hey,
We love you, Europe. We hope
there's
things
the
get better.
joke. There's the joke. So here's the fun part. Here's the fun part, though.
But here's the fun part, though.
After you order your Dubby, if you get one of those bundles that I was telling you about, send us a picture of your Dubby, and we'll post it on our Twitter.
Hell yeah.
So
Oh shit!
I
You
can
can
get
get a
behind
random tub and a shaker for $49.
what?
Oh yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Dubby
Okay.
knows what they're doing, clearly.
Yeah, he who comes with the wine, you better send me your unsolicited Dubby pics. Mm.
Yeah,
Got him.
send us a picture of your little Dubby.
Now that we got the W out of the way, you
Now
know
I
you need to
want-
go to blacktowerpod.com.
Now I want little Debbie.
You need to go to blacktowerpod.com. Why?
I had a
Because I'm about to-
strawberry shortcake roll.
Because
earlier
by the
this morning.
time this is posted
Or
on
today.
YouTube, it will have been updated with JordanCon 2023 photos.
Brr, 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 brr,
Beep, 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 beep,
brr.
beep. All the photos I got, all the photos that people posted in the JordanCon chat in our Discord, they're going up on the website, and you'll be able to see the latest and greatest from the best goddamn Jordan convention, JordanCon yet. Like the best one to date. It was epic.
It was pretty epic.
And then you need to go to, our Patreon, click our little Patreon link right there, and become a member of the Black Tower. Who doesn't want to be a member of the Black Tower? I want to be a Black Tower member. You want to be a Black Tower member. Let's do this.
I scream, you scream, we all scream constantly
taint.
because existence is pain.
And
Wait,
now
what?
that we've got all those things taken care of, Andrew, you know what to do, my friend.
Oh, let's do this.
Do it.
The Black Tower stands fully erect.
When the
Yes,
tower
yes.
is bulging at full erectness, you must protect yourself from tainty spoilers.
Your spoiler condom must cover the immense girthiness of all 14 books of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time.
With an itty bitty tip at the top for the prequel New Spring.
If your condom is too small, you will get tainty spoiler jizz all up in your eye.
Or ears.
You
have been warned.
You have indeed been warned, my friends.
You have been warned.
You'll never see me coming.
I'm
Love
pretty
it.
sure a number of people have seen you coming.
I
Got him.
will
Can we
neither
mention this is the
confirm
Black
nor
Tower
deny said allegations.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this show on the road before we get ourselves in any more trouble.
Before we get ourselves canceled
Already happened.
twice. Let's not make it a third time. Third time. I hear the third time you get canceled, it sticks.
Ha!
Good thing the taint is oily slick.
Why do we do this to ourselves and everyone else? Anyway, all right, guys.
Don't mind me. I was updating the website playlist.
Speaking
To
of the
actually
taint,
have the last 5 episodes.
Yeah, because I religiously forget to do that. So if you're
It's all
ever
good.
sitting there and you're on blacktowerpod.com and you're like, these don't have the same titles. Well,
wait a minute.
Yeah, well, that's a thing. Anyway, guys, it is time for us to actually get into our subject. It's
before
oh,
we have a welcome, because I almost forgot.
Oh,
Almost
that's
forgot
true.
to
We
this.
do.
We have a new member of the
We have
Black
a new
Tower
family member.
podcast family. Welcome, newest family member, Knuckles Mustache. Daniel, do the honors, do the thing. Because you have the mustache.
Welcome, Knuckles. Welcome, Knuckles Mustache. Those
Thanks
of
so
you who don't
much.
know, Knuckles Mustache is a frequenter at JordanCon, is a delightful gentleman.
Delightful.
We're happy
Welcome,
to
sir.
have you.
I'm just gonna hit a little welcome to the farm. Bam. Give him a little tiggy tag right up in there. Okay.
Tig
Yeah, we like
tag.
it sticky, icky, sticky.
All right,
Right.
guys. So, as you know, here on the show, we like to dive deep
You know, here on the show we like to
into the lore and the world and all of the wonderful new culture and brevity and just everything that makes up the world and the world building of the Wheel of Time. All of the wonderful things that Robert Jordan came up with and brought all of us into the world of Randland and the surrounding countryside and islands and across the mountains and all of that different stuff. Sometimes that takes the form of really getting into certain characters. Sometimes that takes the form of really going ahead and finding out as much as we can about certain nations or groups of people, like the wise ones or the Aes Sedai or things like that aren't necessarily nations but are sort of groups of people. But sometimes we really like to dive into concepts. We've done a number of episodes on metaphysics. We've done a number of episodes on sort of talking about how the magic system works and how Quendiar is created and different things like that. And today we wanted to talk about something that I actually find to be particularly interesting in the books. And I think that my co-hosts do to a certain extent as well. And that is, they talk about in the books men and women's ability to link and their ability to control magic that they wouldn't normally have access to by linking with another person of the opposite gender who can then give them access to that half of the magic system.
Yes.
Because of course, the one power is broken up into a male half Saidin and a female half Saidar. Now, as we all know, Saidin from the beginning of the books, actually from way back further than the beginning of the books, but of course, when we jump in is the beginning of the books. Saidin has been tainted by the Dark One. There is a wrongness to it because the Dark One had access to it for a moment way back when, at the end of the Age of Legends, and ruined it for humanity. And so most, if not all men who actually use the one power, or Saidin in this case, end up going insane in some way or another because of the wrongness on Saidin. However, now that you've been spoiler condomed, you can all know that is not true for the entire book series. A little over halfway through the book series, Rand, the Dragon Reborn, with some incredible help from one of the best characters in the books, Nynaeve, uses a combination of Saidin and Saidar to cleanse Saidin of that wrongness. And then we spend 3 books, I swear, with nobody actually really understanding what has truly occurred. I mean, the men talk about it as it doesn't feel wrong anymore, but also, if we're being honest, they don't actually have any real barometer for what clean Saidin should feel like. So they can't actually know whether it's just cleaner or less wrong or anything like that. They just know that Sidene doesn't necessarily feel as oily or as wrong or as gross as it used to. Also, I do appreciate He Who Comes with the Wine in our Discord just threw out an important distinction. You are absolutely correct. Sidene is cleansed from that point on, and madness does not increase, presumably. But anyone who already had a certain amount of insanity from dealing with tainted Sidene is not immediately healed of that madness. It's basically you already have the PTSD and you're not going to get more, but you already have it. And so it's not going to fix your PTSD that you already have either. So we wanted to talk a little bit about today sort of why, with the mechanics that Robert Jordan gives in the book, why is it that men and women can actually use the magic together? And there are a number of relationships in the Wheel of Time that are men and women using the power together after it's been cleansed and before, presumably. And yet, none of the women that actually link with the men understand that it has been cleansed, that it is not that this description that the men give of what it used to feel like is no longer there, and therefore it's not, you know, something that they necessarily have to be worried about anymore. They see them not actually getting any worse as far as their madness and things like that. So we want to talk a little bit about that, because I know that on some levels there's an obvious answer here, and that is wishful thinking. I've been in several situations in my life where someone says that something's true, and game theory tells me that you want it to be true, so I can't actually believe that it is true because you want it to be true so badly that you may be making it true in your own mind without it actually being true in real life. But again, there's like a hard proof here to a certain extent. So why is it that this is a truth? Why is it that everybody is so hesitant to admit that it's happened? Why are even some of the men at the Black Tower not 100% sure that this has happened? Why is it that this is such a confusing thing when to the reader it feels so obvious? So Josh, we're going to start with you because you seem like you have some stuff to say and I want to hear it.
So first off, the cleansing of Sidene, I love. Okay, I love, because as I've stated numerous times, whilst being introduced to the series, my buddy and I, Ben Lowe, shout out to Ben Lowe, shout out to Richard Howard. You guys are amazing. The late Richard Howard. You guys are amazing. You started my crazy Wheel of Time journey, and I will forever be grateful to you for that. But Ben and I debated hotly and tremendously. And one of these days, he's gonna stumble upon one of these episodes and he's gonna be like, "You son of a bitch, I didn't say that." And on that
you
day,
got
Ben,
me monologuing.
on that day, Ben, you can come on the show
dog,
and we can talk about it. But we debated hotly, and I asserted that Sidene must be cleansed. It must be cleansed. Something must happen. And he asserted
something's gotta give,
that it can't happen. And I was like, it has to. And he was like, don't you think they would have done it in 3,000 years? Thus outlining the issues that we've poked fun at. But the cool thing about this becomes, this is something that needed to happen. Rand, hints at it I think he starts hinting at it in Lord of Chaos.
Bruh, he starts hinting about it so early. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. The thing that tips him off, the thing that gives him the thing is when Lanfear presents him with the keys to the
Choden Call.
The Choden Call. And she
Chode
basically says,
the call.
We can challenge the creator himself with these bitches. It's like, imagine having literally the world's nuclear arsenal at your fingertips. I mean, it's and then some.
Yes.
And so Rand is like, for 4
A
or
much
5
more
books,
creative nuclear arsenal.
he sits around going, this should be possible. I think I got an idea. And he does a lot of studying. He does a lot of theorizing and philosophizing. And he says, how do we do this? How do we make this happen? The end of Winter's Heart, he's got a plan. He selects Nynaeve, who is not only someone he can trust, but someone who is very powerful with Saidar. They link, and he basically says, this is what we need to do, and they work together, and they like channel literally all of the power for several days.
It's not quite that long, but yeah.
I mean, but it's a long time.
It's a long time. It's hours
then,
at least.
And then Winter's Heart ends with the words, it's clean.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love how it's not Rand who says that. One of my favorite moments is that Rand does not finish the job and then go, all right, everyone, it is
look
finished.
What I did.
Look what I like. He finishes and collapses, and so does Nynaeve. And it's one of the other asha'man that's there who says,
I cannot recall which asha'man
clean.
It is.
I believe is it Fedwin? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Anyway, I will look it up.
Anyway,
it's Jahar.
It's Jahar Narishma.
I happen to have it.
Yay!
Because I was
looking
at something else. But
and
yeah,
then,
it's actually towards the end. It's clean.
Book.
Jahar said softly yet again.
Jahar, there we go. Jahar Narishma.
Yeah. And you have the
our
very
guy.
Next book.
This Sidene is clean.
Is clear. And you've got this beautiful moment where everybody like they don't believe it. And then you've got Crossroads of Twilight, which is literally everywhere else in the world. Everywhere else in the world is going, gee, what's going on over there? Someone is channeling a lot of the power. And like that's the whole book. And then of course, I mean, they do other things too. Like
just makes me think of some farmer like looking through the 999 NE or the 1000 NE Farmer's Almanac, being like, I didn't predict this in the fucking
I didn't predict this. Oh shit, I love it. But the thing that gets me is there's a point in the story where male channelers look at their bonded Aes Sedai counterparts and they go, no, really, it's clean. And the Aes Sedai are like, all right, link with me. Let's do this.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep.
And the Aes Sedai, there is actually a specific passage in the stories where they talk about the women channel Sidene and they don't feel any kind of sickening, nauseating, like taint or corruption on Sidene. They don't feel it. But what they do also say in conjunction with that is that Sidene is so foreign to them. It is so chaotic and so weird, and just that they can't even, they're not willing to give the official okay because they can't identify what exactly is good Sidene and what exactly is bad Sidene. And the men who can channel, they're all kind of crazy, right? I mean, like, come on, they touched Sidene once. They're crazy. They're insane.
That was precisely the thing that I was reading in Winter's Heart, trying to remind myself and as the topic of conversation figure out. So sorry, I was
no, but go for it.
So because this is one of the clearest examples we ever get of a male that can channel plenty of Sidene, tainted Sidene, linking with a female channeler with Sidair, and getting an abundant torrent of it. If anybody's going to feel the taint as a female channeler, someone who cannot normally channel Sidene, it's Nynaeve in Winter's Heart.
Yep.
And Rand brings himself to the brink of embracing Sidene, but holds himself just on the edge as Nynaeve instructed so that they can link. Nynaeve
He
takes
edges
a quick
himself.
breath. Yeah. And then Rand notices Sidene flowing through him. Says Sidene flowed through him, all the molten fury and icy tumbling, all the foulness, and he could not control a hair-thin thread. You can see the flow from him into Nynaeve. So Rand is watching Sidene uncontrollably leave him and go into Nynaeve. And from his perspective, it's all the fury and everything that is the torrent of Sidene, along with the taint on Sidene, which makes sense. But then whenever we get to kind of how Nynaeve reacts, she drew a shuddered breath. How can you stand that? She said hoarsely. All chaos and rage and death, light. Now you must try. And she goes into how they're going to transition his control. And he just rips it from her because it's Rand and he's still in his Darth emo phase and can't stand not being in control. Not to mention like his entire philosophy on using or any of the male channeling philosophy on using any sort of the power is wrestled control. So he's not going to be used to somebody else holding the reins, and he's going to, by definition of his experience with Luz Theron in his head, heavy quotation marks on that, not be happy with it. So you see Rand says that like the taint does go with the flows of Sidene into Nynaeve. But shut the fuck up, Siri. Jesus Christ. But the way she reacts versus how male channelers react to embracing Sidene, even the first couple times, it doesn't add up because you're coming from somebody who's used to surrendering to use their magical force, who's used to this very clean, very calm kind of go with the flow side. And her reaction fits very well somebody who's used to calm and collect and is suddenly thrown out into like a raging storm that cannot be controlled, like volcanic eruption mixed with, you know, the kamikaze winds of the South China Sea or the Japanese Sea, Sea of Japan. That's what it's called. But her reaction to me doesn't seem to acknowledge the taint, because the way it's described by the male channelers is it's incredibly vile, that it makes you violently ill from the onset, from the very first time you embrace Sidene. And Nynaeve doesn't react as if she just like witnessed or tasted or touched or felt the most vile thing ever. She's just like, how can you control that? It's like this disdainful kind of dislike for what from her perception has got to be essentially absolute chaos and madness. So when she talks about how it feels like chaos and rage and death, to me, if you're used to a feeling of going with a gentle meandering river and surrendering to it and feeling safe in that, and now you're faced with the other side of the power that you have to forcibly wrestle under control, just like Rand feels like he's being swept away by forcibly trying to control Sidair. Well, Nynaeve is going to feel like she's going to die and be like swept away by having to now forcibly control Sidene rather than being able to still surrender to Sidene. But it doesn't seem to match somebody that just encountered the taint for the first time.
Right.
As a seasoned channel.
Well, it's also interesting because I think that Nynaeve is one of the most humorous people in some ways to go ahead and have that be true and say about it. Because when Nynaeve was blocked, she would get angry enough to wrestle with Sidar, basically.
Correct.
And so the fact that like Nynaeve, one of the only women in the world who might have any kind of real similar experience to channeling Saidin, is like, what the fuck did I just touch? Like,
I mean, but to be fair, I mean, talking about like her lack of reaction, towards the end when Rand just like snatches control from her, she yelps and jumps and looks at Rand and says, "You were supposed to wait until I." She began in an angry voice, then went on in a merely irritated voice, which is a drastic improvement for Nynaeve.
Right.
Well, at least I'm rid of it. What are you so wide-eyed about? I'm the one that had her skin yanked off. So it's one of those things like, okay, this person didn't really act like they just encountered the taint at all. Nynaeve didn't act like she really encountered anything that revulsive, but she also just yelped a little bit and got angry because it felt like somebody ripped her skin off. So I don't know how fair of an assumption it is that she didn't feel the taint. I mean, well, I think it's still very fair, but I think there's a fair argument that maybe she did actually feel it. It was just kind of like, ew, that's disgusting. You should wash your part of the one power.
That's kind of the point, though, right? Because as Daniel was saying, Nynaeve has a unique perspective in that she was linked with Rand prior to taint cleansing, and I don't believe there are instances of her linking with or handling Saidin afterwards. Are there?
I mean, she links, but she doesn't handle it because they all link whenever Rand goes into Shao Ghul.
Correct.
Right.
But they also have a lot to worry about at that point, and it's not necessarily important for her to.
I know literal Satan and all two of his closest minions are right there, but how does Saidin feel? Does it feel better?
Right. Like, so, but see, okay,
is it just chaos and fury, but no death anymore?
This is the part of the story that I just don't understand, and like this is the whole reading between the lines. This is the whole Min doesn't actually like have conversations with Rand and sit on his lap every day on the page. But we know as readers that she is keeping him sane. She is being there as the shoulder to cry on. She's being there as the comforting voice. She's being there as the bastion of advice as he's turning into Darth Rand, and she is slowing that process. Even though
attempting to,
it's not on the page. Just like that, it's a situation where if I was Nynaeve, I would find some motherfucker to link with after this. And even if I wasn't actually planning on doing anything with Saidin, I would find out what happened. I would check it. I would do the whole like experiment to go ahead and do that. And so even though it doesn't sort of say, I mean, we have an example of other sisters that are linked with asha'man or that are bonded with asha'man actually doing that with intention. And so, like, why does it feel like that's the only instance of it happening? Why doesn't it feel like all of the sisters would want to know? Like, they would seek out men who could channel and, like, actually discover what's happening right now. Because everybody's saying,
one would think
the taint is cleansed. You would think that you would want to get some empirical evidence on whether that's true or not. And you've got to be involved in the process, presumably, to get particularly good information if you are the kind of super control freak group like the White Tower. And so it's just one of those things where I find it fascinating. The other explanation for this that I have heard and that I appreciate but don't buy into fully is Andrew just touched on something. How is it that Saidin is cleansed? What they do is they funnel Saidin and the taint through saidar, like basically through sort of a tube of saidar into another place that has been touched by the Dark One effectively. I mean, not actually, but just has evil of a similar variety. And they funnel the taint, they like sieve the taint out of saidin and into this other place using saidar as a protective barrier. So does that mean that women, since they only touch saidin, are automatically protected from saidin through saidar? Is that why Nynaeve doesn't mention the taint? Because she actually has this sort of natural protection from it, because saidar is actually always protecting women who are linked with men from the taint on saidin, and they could have actually been doing amazing things this whole time with the men who can channel until they go insane, because they would have been protected? Or is it just a situation where she doesn't mention it because there's so much else going on that she's like, okay, I just got an absolute tsunami of sensations and I can't pick out the one that's the taint? Like,
I mean, I would think it would have to be that way. Because so we already know that Aes Sedai from the Age of Legends figured out a way to, in a very much smaller way or smaller event, but no less significant, figured out a way to siphon the taint off of saidin with saidar.
correct.
This is how the Eye of the World was created, and as a result, it was so difficult for them because they were unaided by the Choden Call. Everyone that participated in it died. But we have this instance at Shatter Logoth where two channelers by themselves with the male and female Choden Call access keys, at least, because I believe the male one is destroyed in this process, but the female one remains.
That's correct. The male Choden Call key is melted.
Yeah. Through Rand, not just the taint or some of the taint, the entire volume of the taint is channeled through the access key and kind of through Rand. But if they place the lattice that was saidar at the juncture where saidin enters the male Choden Call, or right after where saidin leaves the male Choden Call, and that's where it got kind of filtered down this kind of aqueduct-like structure, is how it looked in my mind. It was like a Roman aqueduct leading into Shatter Logoth. It would have to be able to protect the link from the taint, because if you can go as mad as as asha'man do and male channelers do in just a couple months of channeling, even a couple of weeks of channeling saidin heavily, imagine how insane Rand would have gone had he actually been exposed to the entirety of the taint. Which then also means the very nature of saidin is that it is an infinite power source. And if you can filter something off of an infinite power source, then that also means that, to a degree, the taint itself has to be finite.
So, well,
So sorry, by the way, I do want to make a quick fact check. I'm going to be sexy more shoddy because he's not here right now. Rand does eventually destroy the male Choden Call key, but it's actually the female Choden Call key that is destroyed.
Okay.
It melts, and actually the female Choden Call statue itself is actually damaged in the process of cleansing saidin, which actually is the thing that causes the people on Tremalking to commit mass suicide, because they don't actually know anything about the Choden Call access key, but they worshipped the statue as basically a god, and when it glows and then gets damaged, they take it as a sign of the end times and commit mass suicide.
Was it the damage to it that caused it, or I thought it was just the glow that did it?
Nope. There's also damage that actually happens to the statue.
Yeah. Like,
no, I mean, I know there's damage that actually happens to it, but I didn't know that the damage is part of what triggered the Amir to commit mass ritualistic suicide.
Okay, I will admit, in the books, it's not 100% clear
Mm.
as to whether which part of it caused them to commit mass suicide, but it is mentioned that both happen. The glow and the damage
Mhm.
both happen.
Yes.
And Josh, the Shodan Call key is melted. The statue actually just crumbles. Not in its entirety, but pieces of it crumble.
Right,
The
right,
statue
right.
itself does not
Right.
actually melt. It's just the Shodan Call key, the access key that melts. And then, of course, later, as I said, the male Shodan Call key survives. And at some point, Rand starts carrying it around with him until during his sort of Zen Rand moment, he actually obliterates the key.
That's right.
Because he
You are
decides that it
correct,
is
sir.
too much power for one person to have.
Well,
And that no human being should actually have access to this much power, and that it should be destroyed. Now,
and it is
interestingly,
when-
he does not destroy the Shodan Call itself. And there's technically another access key that we know of, but he does destroy the access key that he has access to.
And it is when the statue glows, and then it's the melting that they see as the signal for the end of the time of illusion, and that's what causes the Amayar to mass.
So it is melting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
The mass
So
Alt F4 on life.
Right.
the
F.
interesting thing about
F.
this, though, yeah, right.
F.
The interesting thing about this becomes that as you said, Daniel, he does actually destroy the male access key during his revelation.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the part of that is him being so caught up in everything, and he's repeating the mistakes of the past.
Yes.
Right? He's saying, I messed it up. I can't do this. I'm sort of crushed under the burden of responsibility that I'm faced with.
The burden
I
of
didn't
massive
want
talent.
this.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
Bird, and
that's
crush me
right.
with your giant mommy milkers, please.
And this, as we know,
Stop it.
is one of the concepts that Robert Jordan wrote the story on, is that self-preservation and self-interest is very much a piece of the prophecy kind of a thing, right? If you come up to someone and say, oh, by the way, you're prophesied to do this, they're going to not have a good time with that. They're not going to just be okay with that and go,
Well, depends
oh,
on what you
cool.
tell them they're going to do.
Let me
yes.
just jump on board with that. It's going to be a bit more difficult than that.
Well,
right?
I mean, it's also Robert Jordan bringing in an allegory for the concept of nuclear proliferation, right?
Yes.
Because Rand sits there and says, I'm so miserable, I can't win, so why don't I just destroy all of reality now?
Right.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
might as well just get it over with now. Yeah.
Which is essentially the concept of MAD, mutually assured destruction. I can't win, so there just can't be a reality.
Exactly.
And Rand,
I can't
finally,
win, so
after
I'll make
books,
everyone lose.
Yeah, a moment of clarity goes, other people actually live here and deserve to have a chance to live. And he finally is like, this is just too dangerous of a tool to have. Now we just
That's actually my favorite moment, when he goes, other people live here too, in Randland. That's not acceptable.
the definition of it's my world and you idiots are just living in it.
I mean, yeah.
Hey man, when you tell somebody from the time that they're 20 that they're Taviran and destined to save and also probably destroy the world, they're gonna be a little bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of one of the things you get there too is, and I know we've kind of got off the rails a bit here.
Nope.
But
there were no rails to begin with. Continue.
Rand has a very specific, mission. He's got
I have a very
specific
specific lack of skills.
a very specific lack of skills. And
Formed from
when
a
we
very
start
long
talking
career of being
about
an ignorant sheep herder.
the cleansing of Sidene, I don't think this is anything he's ever kind of been like, okay, in order to do this, we need to do this. I think he gets, I mean, obviously we get hints that he needs this from his trip to the Elfin and the Eelfin, right? They tell him, hey, you need to unite everybody. Oh my God, I got something in my eye.
The
You
thing
need
that
to
I love the
unite
most
everybody.
about
Was
about
it
the
tainty
cleansing.
spoiler jizz?
And it is. That's exactly what it is.
Which is weird because
And
you've read all of the books.
he says that he needs to unite everyone under a single banner, and he interprets that as, oh, we need male channelers. We need every single person we can get. And obviously that comes with risk. Obviously that is a very dangerous thing to do, because we are,
Nuclear bombs.
men who can channel go insane. It's not an if, it's a when. So you as he has unleashed men who can channel, as he has built treaties, and he's done all these things, and he gets to the point where he's like, it's still not enough. And not only is it not enough, but it's falling apart, because he has to know at this point in time that Taim is a bit of a turncoat. He has to know that sort of like a lot of his plans are, well, he perceives that a lot of his plans are failing.
What are you doing
And-
there, son? Thwarting my plans? Thwarting your plans? Are you? No.
And so it becomes this real difficult sort of situation for him to be in. And again, he's got a history of, I can't handle this. I'm just going to end it all. I'm just going to, as Andrew put it, I'm just going to Alt F4 everyone.
Yeah. Well, think about this. He's also faced with all of these, many through unfortunate and definitely wrong circumstances, but many
Yes.
now also through mutual agreement circumstances. You have a lot of Aes Sedai now that are bonded to
Right.
male channelers. And Rand sitting there looking at this, being like, I actually have to think about the Black Tower for once in 7 books, or however long it was, is like, well, when they inevitably go mad and have to be given wine, or if it happens in the battlefield and they have to go down, like what happens to their Aes Sedai when they die? Oh my God, what happens to
Valid.
them when they go
Absolutely valid.
mad and kill their own Aes Sedai, or their Aes Sedai dies and they go into the warder rage while a mad asha'man?
I said
Like,
die.
Yeah, like it's a terrifying thought. And so the solution then comes from this, because one of the things we get, even though Rand is in his Darth phase and his like not very far too rational phase, is with
in his
men he
Asha'man
does
phase.
yeah. With men, he spends so much time thinking about the Corinthian cycle, thinking about all of these different acts of Aes Sedai in the past, and searching the past for answers. And we know as readers, and I'm sure some people picked up on it without being told it, that the foundation work for the cleansing of Sidene was laid out for us as readers in Eye of the World. That's the first time we see a hint at this even being possible, much less an idea of how to do it. And this is where Rand gets the idea to use Sidair to help filter the taint off of Sidene.
It's big brain time.
Yeah. And basically what he does is he just does the Eye of the World scaled up and provides the taint on Sidene a place to go. Because I think he reasons out that the reason they died by filtering the taint, when they filtered the taint off of Sidene to make the Eye of the World, is that instead of filtering the taint off into somewhere else, it
They
basically
filtered
got
it
absorbed
into
into their
them.
into themselves, and ultimately it was too much and killed them. So it's really genius. But again, the crux of the question here is why don't the Aes Sedai know? And does linking provide the kind of mutually available information that would lead Aes Sedai or anybody linked to a male channeler to realize that no, it is cleansed? And I think I'm going to say the answer is no, that the link doesn't provide the informational input that would allow them to realize that that Sidene is indeed clean. However, the bond most assuredly does, because in the bond you can feel the sensations and feelings from your partner. And if you've been bonded, especially for the Aes Sedai bonded to asha'man before the cleansing of Sidene, and they could feel that, however brief, a moment of sickness, that moment of like kind of like, oh, I'm going to throw up, too much tequila, from the asha'man, but now they're not. Then they're like, okay, I can tell that. But even furthermore, if you're bonded to somebody, especially the way that the Aes Sedai that came in later and willfully bonded asha'man, you can compel your, well, it's not compulsion, but a compulsion like weave. You can compel them to tell you what they believe is true, to obey your order. And even then you can feel if they're lying or not. Because anytime Lan even wasn't being wholly truthful with Moraine, she knew it. Whenever Lan wasn't being wholly truthful with Nynaeve, she knew it, and they felt it across the bond. So I can understand them not backing it up in the link, but any of the Aes Sedai and asha'man that are bonded, and if those Aes Sedai don't believe that Sidene is cleansed, or at least that their bonded asha'man truly believes that it is, like, to me that makes fuck all sense.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree, because obviously there is something to that, right? You've got a whole ass bond that is designed specifically for the purpose of unifying Aes Sedai and Warder to the point where they can work more effectively together, more efficiently together. We actually see this in the TV show, I think, really, really well, where Moraine and Lan are taking on a whole squad of Trollocs and holding their own pretty well. Like, they just do a great job of holding their own. The problem that I see with that is, once again, okay, there's like a law in science, right? There has to be an observable result, and it has to be a verifiable result, and you have to be able to reproduce the result in order for people to accept widely that this is a law, or this is a verifiable bit of science to operate under, right? In this particular case, you cannot reproduce the taint after the taint has been cleansed. You cannot even verify that the taint ever existed if you've never felt it. And you can't even, and that's what I was saying, is that we don't really get a lot of page time that I know of regarding Aes Sedai who link with and channel through their asha'man prior to the cleansing of the taint. The only one that I know of, and please someone correct me if I'm incorrect here, but the only woman I know of channeling Sidene prior to the cleansing would be Nynaeve, and the only reason that would be the case is because she's linked with Rand at the time.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
There are a number of people in the actual battle around the cleansing of Sidene that are female-led circles of
Okay.
3 linked. So they would actually feel it as it happened. They would legitimately be feeling it as Sidene was being cleansed. Now, granted, there are also, I think there are 5 different links of 3. There are 4 different links of 3, and then 1 by herself. So there are 5 groups, 4 that have multiple people, and 1 that is just I never remember her name. Olivia, Olivia, with an Angreal. And 2 of those links are being controlled by women because there are more women than men.
Okay.
And 2 of them are being controlled by men because there are more men than women. Or the other way around. I don't remember which one it is. But because I don't always remember the rules.
The
on
mechanics
channeling,
are, yeah.
but it's one of the 2 that either the more men you have or the more women you have, one of the groups needs to be in control, and I do not remember which one. But that means that there is at least 1, I think 2 groups of linked people who are using, well, there are 4 that are using Sidene. 2 where the woman is in control and actively using Sidene being channeled, presumably. And so it's one of those fascinating things that, again, like, I absolutely understand. Let me be very, 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 very clear about something. We have talked about on this show plenty of times.
Right.
That the Aes Sedai are not trustworthy at all. Sorry, not trusting. Not trusting. Not trusting. Right. I apologize. I used the wrong word. Not trusting at all. They absolutely, as you were talking about, need verifiable information that can be tested and blah, 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 that they see with their own eyes. And typically they need to see it with their own eyes like 400 times before they actually will admit that it's true.
Mm.
Andrew, you had a revelation, I think.
Well, I read further beyond where I read earlier. So this is after Jahar or Narishma says it's clean. This is from Cad Swain's point of view. And this is the what is the name of the last chapter in this fucking book? The one where they do the thing with the Choden Call. So chapter 35 in Winter's Heart. So this is right after Narishma says it's clean. Cad Swain exchanged looks with Maurice over the boy's head. Dammer and Jahar both said the same thing. The taint was gone, but how could they be sure some scrap did not remain? Maurice had allowed her to link with the boy, and she could not feel anything like what the other green had described.
Yes.
But how could they be certain? Sidene was so alien that anything could be hidden in that mad chaos.
Yep. And see, so that, like, again, I'm willing and able to understand that no one understands that or can be 100% sure that the taint is cleansed. Because even men, as I said, have no barometer by which to measure clean Sidene. No man alive. Well, that's not true. Some of the Forsaken, but they're not trustworthy.
Even the Forsaken didn't taste the taint, though, to coin the phrase.
That's fair. You're right. So they don't have a barometer for what tainted Sidene. But so, men who can channel, none of them are alive.
Asmodean. He's channeled both clean Sidene and tainted Sidene.
Yeah, but he's dead by now, so it doesn't actually help.
By now, yes.
Yeah.
But he would have had a barometer.
He would be the one person who really kind of could. But again, it's the idea of, I appreciate to some degree that no one is alive who actually knows what Sidene felt like before it got tainted, and therefore would be able to say whether it was all the way back to what it was when it was clean.
That's a good idea. He comes with the
Well,
win,
Lews
but
Theron doesn't
Lews Theron
actually
is not
exist.
alive.
Yeah, Lews Theron does not exist.
And the fragment in Rand's head is not actually Lews Theron.
Well,
Yeah.
it is Lews Theron, but
No, it's not. It's
it's not.
Rand manifesting his
dissociative.
madness as the voices of Lews Theron. We know that Rand has a weird attachment to his old life that is actually also influencing the voice that he's hearing. But it is a manifestation
enhanced.
of Rand's madness. It's not actually Lews
It's
Theron.
madness enhanced dissociative identity disorder. It's not actually a voice.
It is actually Lews Theron because Rand is Lews Theron.
No, Rand is Rand.
Like it's
Rand
not
has
like
weird access
so here's the
to
thing.
his old memories, but it does not make him Lews Theron.
If
Okay,
the soul
this is another
of the dragon has been reborn, how can the same soul then in turn speak to you as a separate entity? It's impossible.
Okay,
If the soul has already been reborn and is Rand, that same soul then can't also inhabit the body of itself and speak to itself as its old self, because the soul has already been reincarnated.
To be fair, I don't think that we can say that because I mean Robert Jordan is the architect of this world, not us, and he could have done that had he thought that was important. And we can't say that it's not true. But I will say that yes, it doesn't really track. The way that he has described the story doesn't fit very well.
Yeah. And that's why I say it's madness enhanced dissociative identity disorder. Because Rand doesn't want to be the dragon reborn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why his come to Jesus, or I guess to phrase it better, come to the dragon moment on Dragonmount is as prolific as it is, because he doesn't just magically cure his madness because, well, I'll just take in so much of this that it burns the madness away. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. The biggest chunk of what has been causing him the most mental grief has been his disassociation with who he is reborn of. So whenever he fully accepts that on Dragonmount is whenever a lot of his madness seems to go away and he finds peace and calm. But that's,
of course, this may actually be another episode that we can talk about if we want to, but I actually personally think that's a lot of what causes the madness in the first place. Not just Rand's, but I think that a lot of people actually are mentally breaking under the pressure of what they think / know to be true, rather than the actual taint itself.
Well, that's what does compulsion work the best on? Making you do something you already want to do. Yep. So where would a taint that induces madness work the best? Latching on to your pre-existing insecurities. And given Robert Jordan's proclivity for incorporating elements of our world into the story, especially coming from the southern part of the United States, it's a very heavy Christian ideology that demons will latch on to your most vulnerable points and your largest insecurities to then pull you further away from the light of God. And that's how they're effective. And many other religious cultures go the same way. But anyway, so to be fair to all of the female channelers that both Link and Bond, male channelers, both before the taint is cleansed and after, even if every single one of them 100% accepted and agreed and believed that the taint was cleansed, and they all said, no, the taint is cleansed, the rest of the world is going to go, are you sure about that? Because for 3,000 years, the entire world has been told everything is in shambles because the male half of power isn't safe.
I mean, think about 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Like even from our own time, 200 years ago, guys, cattle was still being inventoried in the military because that's how they pulled around their artillery. 200 years ago, it took weeks to cross the ocean in a sailing barge, a tall ship, because we didn't have the electricity. Forget about it. Like it's lanterns and candles and shit. Just 200 years ago. Now, go back 3,000 years, and really it's miraculous that these people have any idea of the history that existed 3,000 years ago at all. Because what do we have?
I don't fully agree with that, because we are not in a situation where we've already been through the Age of Legends and now we're past it and have been kicked back to the Dark Ages. We just started in the dark.
Speak for yourself.
I
just got out
don't
of my
know
stasis
that
box.
to be true. But
Exactly.
I just got out of my
point.
stasis box like 40 years ago. So
he's a chosen.
Yeah.
Kill him. Yeah,
No, I just stole somebody's box, climbed inside, and went to sleep for 40 years or a
That's
couple
right.
thousand years.
Yeah. I look at the situation. I go, historically speaking, when you apply the calendar memory to us, to real life, to where we are, and you got to remember, like,
Is this real life?
I'm gonna hurt people's
Is
feelings,
this just
but
fantasy?
like Jerry Springer, who,
Caught in a landslide.
R.I.P. the legend,
No
was at the
escape from
height of
reality.
his career like 25 years ago, as of when we record this. The Price is Right was like at the height of its thing like 40 years ago. We landed on the moon like 70 years. These are all approximations. Okay, don't
Believe in the moon.
Don't at me. We landed on the moon like 70 years ago. Like you just go back 100 years. Cell phones didn't exist, computers didn't exist, electricity was a thing, but home telephones didn't exist. DVDs, CDs, cassettes, stereos, like
Thank you, Sexy Morshadi.
You had, I said they were approximates. Shush.
Dude, 16 years is actually pretty unapproximate.
Anyway, point being, there's the world looks vastly different now than it did 100 years ago. It looks vastly different now than it did 500 years ago. So when you talk about it is, and I will agree with you, Daniel, it is a unique scenario in that 3,000 years ago, they had the Age of Legends, the peak of civilization that crumbled, and now this is where they are. It's an interesting progression, especially with regards to the taint, because you've got so much of the world is shaped specifically by men who can channel, who are insane because of the taint. And when you take into account 3,000 years of history in which this common denominator is universally true, not just universally accepted, universally true, men who can channel will go insane. Men who channeled went insane and caused the destruction of the height of society. Those are facts. Those are things that happened. And those are things we know that they happened because they continue to.
No, you're absolutely right. I just couldn't resist using it.
I love
I'm
it.
not actually.
Fake
this is
news.
again. This is a
news.
whole nother episode, but I'm not even sure that's actually true.
Well,
That's what
I'm
happened.
weaving
Like,
it
I got the
back into
fake
the
news and
taint.
propaganda thing stuck in my head. So I
I'm
was like,
weaving it back into the taint. I'm getting there. Stick with me for a moment. So that when you take all that context into account and you come back to where we're at, and some idiot farm boy from bumfuck Two Rivers nowhere says, "Don't worry about the taint. I took care of that for you," and everybody goes, "Yeah, okay, buddy." That'd be like someone coming up to you tomorrow and being like, "Don't worry about the Pacific Ocean. I drained it for you." It is equally as unbelievable.
No, it's
The only
not.
difference being
It's not the same.
The only difference being is you could actually go to the Pacific Ocean and see with your own eyeballs that there's still a Pacific Ocean.
No, I feel like it's more like somebody went ahead and said, one person said, all that trash in the Pacific Ocean, I got it all out for you. And
Okay,
then
yeah.
a
No, that'd be a
100
great-
other people also said, we watched him do it. It's clean now. And they all go, and everybody else goes, no, you didn't. You're a lying sack of shit.
Well, I mean, it's also very much like a Jesus and the apostles like thing, right? Jesus never ran around saying, "Yeah, I brought Lazarus back to life. Yeah, I killed the guy, not killed. I cured leprosy." It was the apostles, like, oh, our Lord here, he rose a man from the dead, and the person's like, "Yeah, I'm Lazarus. He returned me from the dead." And they go to Jesus, and it's like, did you bring this man back from the dead? And he's like, I executed the will of my Father. That is all. Like, I don't think
accurate
Rand
statements are accurate.
I don't think Rand really ever like touts about his cleansing of Sidene. Like, he acknowledges, like, no, it's clean, but he's not really too bothered by convincing people if it is or isn't, because I think he realizes it's an exercise in futility.
Well, but again, though, like you, as I said, for 3,000 years, you have a common denominator that is the accepted understanding of the destruction of the world. And then for some dude to just be like, yep. And then the rest of the dudes to be like, oh yeah, it's good. We're cool. That'd be like going into a thieves guild and being like, okay, you guys aren't gonna steal anymore, right?
No, we're good.
And then all the thieves are like, no, we're not gonna steal. We don't need to steal anymore.
I mean,
You're literally the thieves guild.
I think so. The crux of the question tonight was like, why don't the women know the taint is coming? And generally by women, we're meaning like the channelers.
The ones who can
mass.
actually link with men
Yeah.
and check, not
Yeah,
just the general female population of Randland.
Yeah, because I mean, it sounds like you just said stigmata that made me think of the anime Freeze. Don't watch with your parents around if you go to watch Freeze, by the way. Anyway,
Noted.
yeah,
Or
it is a good anime. However, boobas is very much a
Noted.
thing. So, it's one of those things. It makes sense to expect the individuals that have the closest to expertise in the matter to have the best chance at verifying the claims. If someone is a ballistics expert and someone says this bullet came from this gun, you expect a ballistics expert to have the best chance at verifying or dismissing the claims. But very much like Kat Swain said, even though they, as channelers of Sidair, are the closest thing amongst anybody else to channelers of Sidene, Sidene is still so alien to channelers of Sidair that they can't discern the different feelings of it. It is still too new to them. Because there hasn't been a credible link between male and female channelers, or channelers of Sidene and channelers of Sidair, since they were trying to cleanse the taint to make the eye of the world. Yeah. And if it has been since then, it's been so far beyond. And there's no book in the White Tower that talks about how it feels to link with a man.
Sure.
Because you're not going to
a red Amarylline seed anyway.
Because why would they have information
advocate
on that?
Yeah, you're not going to advocate for the active like channeling sterilization of male channelers while also telling people how it feels to work with a male channeler.
It's probably in this 13th suppository.
It's just right up there, deep, right past the knuckle.
I don't know how you get the first 12 in, but okay.
But okay, here's my thing, and I will
sheer
turn
determination
this,
and will.
I will turn this into my final thoughts. This is what bothers me about this thing, because honestly, I get it. I absolutely understand the idea of we've never done this before. I understand the idea of how can we just trust you? I understand the idea of how can you ever be truly sure when you've never touched it clean in the first place? But again, it being foreign to you is not a good excuse. And I will appreciate on so many levels that there's not that much time to just sit there and study Sidene. And I will also appreciate that the Aes Sedai are not sitting there deciding to, or that the Aes Sedai have regularly decided to ignore things they don't like and take lots of time because it doesn't fit with their narrative of the world and things like that. I'm aware that that's true and I get it. But there have got to be some brown sisters who are actually willing to link with men and find out the answer to this fucking huge question and then actually proliferate the answer out to people who it's relevant to. And it feels like nobody does that. It feels like so many people just pass the buck and just say,
As they do.
how could I possibly even understand whether it's clean or not in all of that chaos? Bruh, men have been channeling Sidene for years. Chaos is where they live. It is not insurmountable chaos. It's different than your magic. It's different than the way that you have typically done things, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth trying. It doesn't mean that it's not worth finding out the answer. And so again, it's so frustrating to me that everybody, or that so many characters in the book go, all right, I touched Sidene. I can't actually tell whether it's cleansed, and I'm not gonna try again. And you're like, Jesus fucking Christ, like what is... And so again, it's just one of those situations where this is one of the things that has frustrated me to no end in the book, is that it doesn't seem to be a priority. And in my mind, one of the biggest priorities in this world right now would be this. And I don't understand why and how my priorities are so screwed up in Randland. So those are my final thoughts. I just don't understand. And I may never in some ways, but it is still an amazing event. It is still an amazing plot piece. And it is definitely something that He Who Comes With the Wine said earlier. It does feel a little bit longer than it actually should, because there are two books that are almost parallel to each other, and so it feels like it goes on forever. But it is still true, even if it's not, even if it feels worse than it actually is, it still exists. And those are my final thoughts.
Josh, do you want to go next, or do you want to go last?
I don't get, you know what, Andrew, I concede. I yield my time to you, sir.
Oh, so you're not going to go at all? That's no.
Wait. Shit.
But you should have the final thought. I'm going to kind of disagree to an extent with Daniel, and say that I think I get it. You have had information that was already, I'm making up words. That's not a good sign for my argument. You have beliefs and realities that are accepted that have no empirical evidence already, that are based purely off of causality, a happenstance coincidence that we as readers know to be true, because we are able to look from the outside in and get a not complete, but a better understanding of history and how things happen. And we also have the privilege of Robert Jordan and Harriet and Brandon Sanderson and all of Team Jordan confirming different things about the series, where we know it is the taint from Shaitan that makes men go insane if they channel Sidene. We know that for an absolute fact. as individuals in the series, though, all you have is 2,600 to 2,900 years or so of being told this is what happens, and eventually going, that seems to line up with what's happening. That sounds about right. Which is the exact same way our world worked off of the theory of gravity. I mean, gravity was a theory for centuries. Well, maybe not centuries, but for a very, very fucking long time before anybody had any way to prove it empirically. It was a presumptive causality that if you drop something, it will fall, which is, funnily enough, a logical fallacy to assume that things will continue to go the way they have in the past. And now you have that very same thing that has become a common acceptance with no empirical evidence, that suddenly, without any kind of prepping, without any kind of notice, like, hey guys, we're doing something big, has been, okay, well, it was all this. Well, now you don't have to worry about that anymore. We fixed it. And there's, again, zero way to empirically prove that to the masses that are living in this world. You have people that have a better chance at figuring out if they're telling the truth or not, that could stand a chance to do some kind of study on it to figure if it's right or wrong, or to give their input on it. It's still going to be hearsay, but they don't really actually have the time in comparison to the rest of what's going on in the world. Because at the point where the taint is cleansed from Sidene, we are a year or less away from the final battle. You're in the middle of all the chosen that remain just showed up, or most of them, to fight. It's absolute chaos. Now I don't think that there's enough service given to it. I do agree there should have definitely, and there definitely would have been, at least some brown and green sisters going, let's test this to see if it's real. So I definitely agree with Daniel on that. But I mean, I understand it, because it's not just the world in mass that's had this same status quo for the past 26 to 2,900 years. The Aes Sedai have had the same status quo forever. And especially the Reds, who now, if this is true, essentially no longer have a purpose and have to redefine their purpose. And with them being the biggest Aja in the White Tower, even broken, they're gonna push back heavily against something that erodes or destroys their purpose. So I think I get it. I also think there are far too few Aes Sedai to stand up and say, like, that even if they all believed it and all knew it was true, there's far too few that would actually change the opinion of the world. Because the world is still generally of the opinion that all Aes Sedai are responsible for the destruction of the world. And to parallel that paranoia to the real world, there are still people that believe that if you even step foot anywhere near Chernobyl, that you immediately grow 2 heads and your children will be born with 16 arms, 57 feet. Because they hear radioactive, and that's the end. It means the absolute worst. Because they don't want to understand it, or they can't understand it. So fear does a lot to drive misunderstandings and misinformation about things. So that's my final thoughts on that very long rant.
I gotta say, when it comes to verifying the taint, this is one of those things, and I've been a very large proponent of this in my personal life. When you make a claim, you'll have 3 groups of people. You'll have the trusters, you'll have the doubters, and you'll have the wait and seers. You'll have the trusters, those who say, I trust you, I know you, I think you're telling the truth, and therefore I'll operate as if you are telling the truth. You'll have the doubters. I don't know you. Why should I believe you? Why should I trust anything you say? And then you'll have the wait and seers. Those are the people who say, okay, you've made a claim, prove it. I'm not necessarily saying you're lying. I'm not necessarily saying you're telling the truth, but what I need to make a decision either way is for you to show me the results, to show me what exactly is the result of your claims at this point in time. Now you've got, as we've discussed here, you've got several women who have channeled and linked with male channelers who have stated it doesn't feel like what they described originally, but it's so foreign and so alien that I can't really give a good a good prognosis one way or the other. I can't take a stance because I don't know, which I think is a very prudent stance to take. It's a very cautious stance to take. It's a very Aes Sedai stance to take. I think that there are vastly larger numbers of Aes Sedai who will be doubters, who will say, nope, don't believe it. I do not believe it for a second. And I think that because, again, think about this. Men who can channel are tainted by the Dark One and will go insane. Period. End of story. That is a fact. That has been known for 3,000 years. Any woman who submits to link with the man and allows tainted saidin through their body also risks going insane. So it is also prudent in this particular case, I would say, to not even trust what they're saying. Like, look at the context, the historical context of the situation. You've got Pavara, you've got Moraine, you've got Nynaeve, you've got maybe a handful. I could probably count on one hand the number of Aes Sedai who are willing to state under the oath rod, saidin is cleansed. And as we know, Aes Sedai, in their quest to be the most trustworthy, are some of the least trustworthy. So having an Aes Sedai come forward and saying, I support the asha'man of the Black Tower, it's not necessarily the ally that is going to push you over the finish line. So in my personal life, I always operate under the fact that everybody is going to say, wait and see. Show me the validity of your claims. And I feel like in this particular case, it is unlikely that you're going to convince the mass amount of people that saidin is cleansed. And we only see even the smallest amount of faith after the last battle's finished, when people come to Logain and start saying, we will bring our sons to you to see if he's been given the dragon's gift. And what's the onus is upon the Black Tower to conduct themselves in an honorable and sane manner and say, that's okay that you don't believe us. Give us time and we'll show you. And as time progresses, the Black Tower will win hearts and minds, and male channelers will win hearts and minds. And that's what's important. And that is my final thoughts on the subject of determining on the taint of saidin is cleansed. And yeah, that's it. That's our show tonight. That's a good show, guys. Good show. Good fucking show. You guys are awesome. Hey, Daniel, Andrew, you guys are awesome. And I'm not saying that because I'm tainted right now.
Yeah, you
I am
are,
glad
but it's
that I
also
can
true.
inspire.
I'm
all.
saying this because it's also true. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for conducting yourselves in a manner becoming of the Black Tower, because you're all members of the Black Tower now. You listen to an episode, you belong to the Black Tower. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Yes, I do. I'm one of the Mahales. Thank you for conducting yourselves in a manner in accordance and honorable with Black Tower standards. Thank you for being amazing. Thank you for tuning in for this week's dose of taint. And we hope you leave here just a wee bit more insane than you were when you first got here. From all of us here at the Black Tower, I have been your storm leader, Josh.
And I led you in them there bath hells, Andrew. That's me.
And I waved around the flag as the Dragon Banner leader, Daniel. And again, from all of us here at the Black Tower podcast, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We hope that you are having a wonderful morning. And in case we don't see you again, good afternoon, good evening, and good taint.
Got a big old flag with this big old dragon on it.
The show.